live. Okay, so welcome. This is a teaching and meditation with Phuntsok, who has been giving these for the last 10, 12 years, maybe. Yeah. And they were at one point in his apartment in Bushwick, which was wonderful. And now they've been on Zoom since COVID, if you're joining from YouTube and you're new. Tonight's talk is about darkness. It's about sort of acknowledging that we're at that time of the year where we're approaching the darkest day, darkest night, darkest moment of the year physically. But as the email was sort of pointing at, we can think about that very metaphorically too, and how that interacts with our sense of light and yeah, what comes out of the darkness and what comes out of acknowledging and honoring the darkness. And yes, these teachings are given for free and by donation. So I will put the ways we can all donate to Phuntsok, which are Venmo, PayPal, and his Patreon in the chat or in the comment section in the YouTube. And I'll pass it over to Phuntsok and hope everyone enjoys their evening.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Nizam. So the topic for tonight is darkness. And I have to say, it is for me a very controversial topic because of how it is approached and how I approach it, the way I understand it. Especially, I would say, Buddhism meeting modern psychology or Western culture. There seems to be a way of understanding Buddhism where it seems to relate to some of the things that I maybe probably not sure if he was the first one or if he's the one who actually popularized it or created it. It's called shadow work. I'm sure this kind of work exists in other cultures, but as far as the greater Western world is concerned, it's the idea of hidden parts of ourselves that are undesirable by us, that we repress, and we wish that we didn't have, or we do not wish to acknowledge them as parts of ourselves. But there they are lurking in the dark. In the dark meaning unknown by us, unrecognized by us. So think of shadow as something that is hidden in hidden, something that is that light has not touched. And the reason that this is a bit confusing for me is because some of the ways that I hear, like embracing our darkness, for example. I mean, when I think of when I think of those kinds of ideas about darkness, I think about, like, for example, war is dark. So when I'm hearing embrace our darkness, so that means I'm supposed to love war. I'm supposed to just get involved, join an army somewhere and let my wanting for war to play out. There's a way for us to understand this. I mean, also you have within Buddhism, especially within Vajrayana Buddhism, there seems to be something in there that is sort of like encouraging this idea of embracing our darkness, where there is the practice called cutting, chu. And this practice is basically inviting all the dark forces in the world, in the universe, and then making offerings to them, celebrating them. So exactly how are we to understand this idea of embracing darkness, integrating darkness, without necessarily falling into just perpetuating our own suffering? And the reason that it is presented to us, embrace your darkness, integrate your let your darkness be integrated, is because we are in a condition that we want to come out of. And as a means of coming out of that condition, we are given the advice, embrace your darkness, integrate the dark side of you. So there's a way for us to understand this so that it actually becomes a means of actually moving from one place, or you could say a place of unwholeness, a place of inauthenticity, to a place of authentic personality, a place of wholeness. So there's a way of understanding that we actually arrive there, rather than someone is saying, "Oh, I keep having these dark thoughts." What comes to your mind when someone would say that? I keep having these dark thoughts, and there's such a range of possibilities of what we can define as dark thoughts. Someone say, "Well, I keep thinking about murdering so and so." We would say, "Oh yeah, that's a dark thought." We wouldn't tell them to embrace that in a sense of, "Yeah, go ahead, go explore that, see how it feels like to kill somebody." We wouldn't do that. So, what does it mean to integrate into what are they pointing at when those supposedly people that who consider authorities to be able to give us advice that to follow, when they give us such advice? Okay, there's a way for us to understand it, because the path is still the middle path. It is still the path of things to pick up and things to let go. And it seems like perhaps when we are given things to let go, things to pick up and things to let go, it seems to be let go of the dark and pick up the light. It seems to be that way. And then here you are, the same person who told you to let go of the dark and pick up the light. That person is saying, "Oh, embrace your darkness, integrate the darkness." So I say, "Well, you're confusing me here. You told me to let it go once, and now you tell me to pick it up again. What's going on?" So how are we to understand that? Okay, because there are certain traits that are being called dark, the dark side, the shadow self. Okay, the tendency to harm others. That's also considered a dark thing, right? People who are psychopath, narcissistic, no, in a very, not in a slight way, but very like in the other spectrum of that, the extreme spectrum of that. These are people who say they dwell in darkness. So how do we help those people now in terms of with this idea of embracing and integrating the darkness? Okay. All right. So we're gonna try to do that, and we're gonna also try to gain a common, really try to get a common understanding of this, and then really see it as, because sometimes embracing darkness means sometimes mean stop trying. The world is just messed up. It's gonna stay messed up forever. You're messed up. You're gonna stay messed up forever. Just accept it. It seems to be that's what the advice seems to be pointing to also, right? But remember, the advice is given because there's a situation that we are in. We want to come out of it, not go deeper into it. All right, so let's do a short meditation. I promise it will be short. Short meditation. I won't stay too much in the guiding. You're becoming more and more mature now, so you can meditate on your own. So I'll just begin and let you go, and then come back and say, okay, come back. Okay. All right, so bring your attention to the surface of awareness, your intention to meditate, or understanding of what meditation is. And let this be part of your intention to make space for the parts of ourselves that we are not comfortable with. Make space for those aspects to come to the surface. And with that in mind, communicate with the intelligence in the body, allowing it to give you advice about how you should have the body so you can meditate. and let that intelligence guide you, how your legs should be, how your back should be, how your arms and shoulders should be, how the neck and head should be centered, how to center them, where's the natural placement for your mouth, teeth, tongue, and to allow that intelligence to go to the top of the head, to your eyes, allowing natural state. And once the body tells you that, okay, you're ready, gently go to the breath. Simply know you're breathing in as you breathe in. Simply know you're breathing out as you breathe out. And eventually, the breath, notice the shift in how the breath is behaving, and make that final commitment to fully enter. You can do that with a nice deep breath. And as you let go of the breath, let yourself go in the body, let yourself go in the breath, let yourself go in the mind, keep letting go, noticing the signs arising, the calming, the pleasantness, the clarity, the radiance, a focus, collecting. And recognize that unique signature that says that you are meditating. Welcome it, rejoice that it is there. Bring your attention to the space in front of you at the level of your eyebrows. And once you feel the sensation there, consider that part of you that protects you, that part of you that guides you, the part of you that is generous to you. Express deep respect, trust, and gratitude. And feel a sense of readiness. Readiness to know the part of you that you do not know. To relate in a way that is beneficial to the part of us that we know and yet we reject, we do not wish to be part of us. And as we are making our minds ready, we are receiving light, shower of light from that presence. Okay, get ready to come out. Notice the signs that you're meditating. Rejoice and feeling ready to receive whatever gifts your own intelligence will give you from tonight's talk. And with that readiness, take a nice deep breath. And as you breathe out, allow yourself to reconnect with your immediate surroundings, connect to your sense of touch, connect to your surroundings, your sense of hearing, and connect to your sense of sight. Okay. I'm not sure if you heard the bell. We've been having problems with, I guess Zoom has a problem with recording a bell. All right. So this topic actually, I have a lot more questions than I have things to say. Like for example, from the email, when you read the email, and when you hear the word, when you hear that expression about the dark side of the self, the dark part of the self, and then that it is necessary to integrate it, to embrace it. What comes to your mind? What is it that you believe that you're being asked to integrate, that you believe that you're being asked to embrace? Like when I hear dark, for example, immediately I'm thinking, okay, the things that I don't want. That's my very first reaction. The first thing that I don't want to be with, the thing I want to get rid of. That's my immediate response to that. And I'm think as soon as I hear that, I'm thinking about like dark web, dark history. That these are the terms that I'm used to hearing that term. Like remember, what was it Star Wars, right? The villain was somebody who embraced the dark side. So are we supposed to become Dark Vader or something so we can become enlightened? So these are the ways that I immediately comes to my mind when I think about the dark side, right? So when I hear we should embrace it, we integrate, I say, whoa, what are you trying to? I'm hearing that. I'm hearing advice. Become Dark Vader. You'll be happy. See, Dark Vader is very happy. He's embraced the dark side. And the other guys who embrace the light, see how they're struggling? That's how I seem to hear that expression. So I had to dig deeper to okay, because this isn't just like in cinemas or or pseudo psychologists who are telling us, giving us this advice. These are people that I feel like have authority who are also giving this advice. Exactly what is it that they're trying to tell me? And so definitely they're not asking me to, when they're asking me to embrace or integrate the dark side of myself, they're not asking me to make sure you become more ignorant because that's the darkest part of yourself. Make sure you're as greedy as everybody else. That's the dark side. That's the dark part. Make sure you're greedy. Make sure you're ignorant. Not just ignorant. I don't know, but impose your ignorance onto reality. Okay. Try to force things to be the way you want them to be. That kind of stuff. So I'm sure that's not that's not what is meant by it. So if you were also confused and then that's how you heard it, I understand. Okay. But definitely, when you look at it from in terms of, like, for example, someone who has uncontrolled dark thoughts. When I say uncontrolled dark thoughts, I'm talking about thoughts about wanting to harm another person or wanting to harm themselves. Right? Those are considered to be dark thoughts. Definitely, it is not an encouragement to go into it and then let it take over your life, right? But there are other things that we consider to be also dark, like, for example, that part of the dark, like fear, jealousy, anxiety, rage, uh, uh, negative thinking, negative talking, always talking bad about yourself, always putting yourself down, um, shame, guilt. These are also make that what we refer to as dark. Like if somebody is caught up in thinking about feeling guilty, feeling rage, we say that person is also is sort of like caught up in the dark. Now, what is that person supposed to do with that? And how are you supposed to integrate? How are you supposed to embrace that? Well, the thing is, it's has to do more with aspects of ourselves that makes us uncomfortable. Aspects of ourselves that we not only feel uncomfortable with, but also we reject outright. And aspects of ourselves, and that's the worst part, that's more of the shadow, I would say, the shadow, like the blind spot, the parts of ourselves that we just don't know about. And that could be directing our lives, and we don't even know that they are directing our lives. They are directing how we experience reality. And we may be experiencing reality in ways that we don't want, and yet we do not know where is it coming from. So that will also be a darkness. Okay. I've read this beautiful analogy of that encouraging this idea of embracing darkness and integrating, where it says, think of a seed in the soil. It is surrounded by darkness, but the darkness is feeding it. Eventually, the seed grows and becomes a tree or becomes a plant. So, in that way, this analogy is supposed to we're supposed to see darkness as something that it can be helpful, that can actually help us grow. Okay. Now, so this more psychological aspects of our personality that we just don't want, aspects of our personality that we wish we didn't, that we just don't like, aspects of ourselves that we know of and we don't like, and we don't like to visit them. Okay? Think of this journey of integration of the dark side as involving these steps. Even if you find your mind thinking about ways of hurting other people, if somehow your mind goes into that darkness, the thing is identification. The problem is identifying. Okay. The reason that we reject those aspects, that we may reject those aspects, the reason that we do not want anything to do with them, the reason that we feel uncomfortable with them is because we identify with them. We think of them as actual self rather than just thoughts moving in the space of our minds. We think of them as being ourselves. And of course, thinking of them as being ourselves, we knowing that, okay, there are certain characteristics that I find reprehensible, there are certain behaviors that I find to be abhorrent, and then yet we find the tendency for those same behaviors within us. And because of that, the same way we have a sense of a aversion towards those things. If we were to witness them in our lives, we have a sense of that aversion towards those aspects, towards those parts of within us that seem to harbor those kinds of thinking. And the way we live it is more with a sense of, this is me, and I don't want this to be me. And because we made that conclusion, this is me, and of course, at the same time, this is something that we have an aversion for. Since this is me, then I have an aversion for myself. And since I cannot be living in a nicely, harmoniously when I'm struggling, when I'm in conflict with my own self, like if I see this part as myself, and I have aversion for it, I want to harm it. I want to destroy it. At least I want to shove it way down in my psyche so it doesn't show up. But somewhere within me, I know it lives there. It lives in my psyche. So if you think about, other than even if those kinds of ways of darkness, like thoughts of wanting to harm someone, this is the extreme of the dark, right? The path of transformation, of integration, is to first acknowledge that it exists in my mind. There is this tendency for my mind to go in that direction. Rather than immediately identifying it, or this is me doing this, but there is this tendency within my mind to go in that direction. And so that's the first step. The first step to simply acknowledge that it is there. And then we acknowledge it, we try to acknowledge it without judgment. We try to acknowledge it without saying whether it is good to be here or whether it is bad to be here. We simply acknowledge it, or there's that tendency. Then after we make that acknowledgement, then we seek to understand it. Why does my mind want to do that? Why is it going that direction? What benefits? And if remember, there's no parts within us that is instinctively wants to destroy the self. There's no part of the self that instinctively wants to destroy the self. That is impossible. Okay. Even though the self may engage in behavior that eventually will harm it, but it does not begin to incorporate those thinking, those behaviors with the idea I want to harm myself. Okay, somewhere there is the conviction that this will benefit me, this will protect me. Okay, so we have to go towards allow that part of us that wants to that initiated this way of thinking, allow it to present its motivation. These thoughts arise in my mind because I believe it will give me this such and such a benefit. And you may not necessarily find this out all the way in the beginning, but you have somewhere, not that if I harm this person, I will be benefited. So therefore, let me harm this person so I can get this benefit. But somehow I'm convinced harming another will benefit me, right? So we stay with that. I want benefit. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting protection. So that's good. And when we are able to address the source of that thinking, whether it's rage, whether it's anger, whether it's grief, whether it is shame. Shame is, I think, is one of those like big part of. For the most part, most people it's a shame that is in the dark, that part of us that we do not wish to, that parts of us that we do not wish to encounter, that we wish wasn't there, that we basically don't like. And if we could get rid of it, we would. Okay, so the source of that, we know that it gave rise to that a feeling, to rise to that habit from its understanding that this will benefit us, this will benefit the self. So holding this in your mind, you're able to have compassion, you're able to have sympathy for that part of yourself. And when you're able to have sympathy, when you're able to have compassion, you're able to hold that part with compassion, then perhaps some of its needs you may be able to meet some of its needs that makes it believe that harming another or holding on to shame, holding on to guilt is somehow beneficial. So it may be gain a sense of relief, a sense of healing, just to be held in a space of compassion, just to be held in a space of love. Okay. Then after we are able to be able to not acknowledge that there is this part and not allow the resentment, the sense of rejection to come up, but rather to just sit with it without judgment. That's and then we accept it. Yes, this is part of me. I have this part within me. Okay. And understand that from a very deep place, it was a confused place, but from a very deep place, it came from a deep place of self-concern. It actually came from a place of compassion. Yes, the thought, I need to harm someone, yes, it is distorted, but at the very depth of it, it is a kind of a self-compassion. I need protection. So therefore, I will protect myself. I think by harming another, I will be protected. Okay. So it comes from some kind of compassion. So when we are able to connect to that root compassion and we bring light to that, then the misunderstanding of how to fulfill this need of compassion, how to fulfill this tendency, this the aim of this compassion, then it doesn't have to involve the path of thinking to thinking of harming someone, thinking of harming yourself, holding on to shame, holding on to guilt. So acknowledgement, acceptance, compassion. Then eventually we will arrive at a place where that need will no longer be there, but also acknowledge that there is power in there. Power in the sense of you do not want to be thinking those thoughts. You do not want to hold on to the shame, and yet there's the shame forcing you to experience it. So there's power in there to create. There's power in there to make experience experienced. So it is that power that we have to now integrate. Integrate in a sense of consider your there's a source within you, self-power. There's this fountain of self-power within you, and different parts of us they're not integrated. They're split into different selves, and each one of them need parts of that self-power in order for them to exist. In order for us to continue to have shame, it needs a part of that self-power to exist as that shame. In order for that kind of thinking to continue, in order for that rage and that anger, in order for that fear to continue, to be an experience that we are forced to experience, it needs that part of our self-power. That is right now we don't have control over. You could say it has control over us. So when we are able to relate with it, no longer as some other that has invaded our being, but rather a part of us with somehow coming from a place of compassion, but somehow got detoured because of misunderstanding. And we recognize that its initial tendency there was nothing wrong with that initial tendency, because we really connect with the compassionate source of it. Wanting to protect yourself is a kind of compassion, right? What we are recognizing is that the dark way of trying to fulfill that is not really going to fulfill it. Okay? That's what makes it unskillful. That's what makes it something that we no longer want, because it will not really fulfill what it seeks to fulfill. It will not protect us. Rather, it will put us in more danger. Okay? So if we communicate with that part of us and see it and don't communicate with it as an enemy, and from the very beginning wanting to harm it, but rather see it as a part of us or a partner of our experiences, sincerely trying to give us something that it believes will benefit us, we connect with that aspect of it. And we sort of show it that it's wonderful that you want to protect me, but look at the direction that you're going. Look at the direction you're going. You're actually going in a direction that goes against what you're trying to do. And it's the same thing with any kind of addiction, whether it's inner addiction, outer addiction, whatever the addiction may be. At the depth of it, there is a conviction that uh, that has been given a lot of power to guide our lives because it is with a conviction that it will benefit us. With this uh, addiction, whether it is there was a trauma that happened in your life at some time, and the way to protect you was to make you not look at reality anymore because reality was too painful of an experience, and you need some sort of mechanism to actually help you not have to face reality anymore. So addiction becomes a compassionate response from that deep inner space to help us, because that was its conclusion. Reality is painful. Let's make sure you don't experience it. And whenever there is the slightest sign that reality is going to come in, you're going to feel the impulse to get away from it and use and we are and the reason that we're calling this dark is because it is not really helping us the way it believes it is helping us, right? So we have to have a dialogue with it. We have to have a conversation with it, and that conversation is not just thinking in terms of trying to figure something out kind of thinking, but actually having a dialogue. Even imagine that part of you is sitting right in front of you, and then you're having a dialogue with it, and you listen, and then of course that part of you, perhaps you will have insight. It will sort of guide you why it came into your life. When did you invite it? What was the condition that was going on that made you invite it? And how much of your power that you gave it for it to exist, to continue to exist. Right? So when you have this dialogue, when you have this understanding that eventually come up, the understanding will eventually uh, have that part of you uh, understand that what I'm trying to fulfill, um, the action that I'm taking, holding on to the shame, holding on to the addiction, holding on to anger, holding on to resentment, uh, or constantly telling myself I'm not good, constantly telling myself I can't do. That came from a place uh, uh, of concern, and eventually it will see that that habit that it has taken on is not going to fulfill it. It's not going to do what it really wanted to do. Then you will start to feel a sense of openness to new ideas. You will start to feel like a weight lifted where there was deliberate obscuration. Like sometimes we are so obscured, we are so caught up in that dark, that is, we are so identified with it that this is me, that's who I am. When we are caught up in those moments, we are so identified with it that even there's a tiny part of us that wishes to no longer be in that experience. And we want to look to see, how do I get out of there? It seems totally impossible to see anything. We are so obscured because it has such a grip on us that it even blinds us from being able to see a way out, because we are convinced it is a part of us, not at the surface level, a deep controlling part of us is convinced that it is for our benefit, that it is there. Okay. So in terms of the idea of embracing the dark, the way I understand it, so that I don't think that they're asking me to become Darth Vader, is that for certain kinds of experiences that we call the dark, right? the dark part of me, like the parts that we are ashamed of, memories of things we've done, certain things that we are ashamed of, and we just hold on to that shame. It is that shame itself that is the darkness, not necessarily what we did. What we did is gone already. We're not there anymore, but we still are holding on to this shame because we think that that's what we need to do. That's how we repair ourselves. We believe that we've done some damage, and the way for reparation is to hold on to shame, to hold on to guilt. But over time, we come to recognize that it's not really helping us. Holding on to shame only make us more continue to be in shame. It doesn't help us. But what we need to do is to look at all of these darkness, and try to see what power lies within them. Right? An example would be if we have a fear. What is the power that lies in fear? And look at exactly what is going on, right? Like, for example, the fear that makes you not move. It has the power to hold you in place, even though you want to move, right? You want to, you're afraid of meeting someone out, meeting a situation outside, and the fear makes you stay in so you don't go out. So it has the power to hold you. Or you're in a place, it tells you the place is fearful, it makes you leave, even though you might want to stay. Okay, so there's you analyze it, you not analyze it, forget about the word analyze, but rather you observe, you just be with what's happening. Look what the fear is doing. Look what is it doing to you? Or the shame, look what is it doing to you? And know that it is real. Don't try to deal with it by saying silly things like it doesn't really exist, because you have no idea what that means. We have no idea what that means, doesn't really exist. Okay? It doesn't really exist for us mean I'm not on the moon right now. Something like that. Or there's a unicorn with rainbow stripes or something in the room right now. That's what it doesn't exist mean to us. Okay, so don't fool yourself when you're having an actual experience and then trying to fool yourself saying it doesn't exist. Sometimes it works if you're in a dream. Okay, if you're in a dream and you're having a nightmare and then some awful thing is happening, if you keep repeating to yourself it doesn't exist, it will work. Okay, in the dream. But in reality that we live in right here, right now, I don't think you have the power that you have in a dream to say it doesn't exist, and then things are taken care of. Okay, but rather acknowledge that it exists. Because it exists, it shares, how do I say that? It shares, I can only put this in somewhat theological way. It shares divine breath. Does that make any sense? I don't know if it makes any sense. Anyway, it is, if think of everything that exists as holy, because it comes from it comes from a foundation of holiness. Okay, whatever existence comes from a fountain of holiness. Okay, think of that. So if it exists, whatever it is, however it is experienced, it comes from that fountain. So it has a spark of divinity in it. It has a spark of the spark is that it exists. It has a spark of existence in it. and whatever exists must be respected. Now, respect doesn't mean that you're witnessing something that is awful, and you say, "Oh, it exists, so it must be respected," and then let it continue. Okay, that's what I mean by respect. But by respect, I mean don't go into that makeup thing. Oh, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's all in my mind. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't play that. Okay. In the same way, if you can say it doesn't exist, in the same way you can say my hand doesn't exist. Can you say that? And can you also say it doesn't exist in the same way that you would say, oh, this whatever that I'm enjoying doesn't exist while you're enjoying it? If you cannot have that same sort of uh, rapport with it, with this experience that is unwanted, this experience that is dark, the same way you have experiences, the same way you relate with things that you enjoy, and while you say it doesn't exist, if you don't have that same way, don't say it doesn't exist. We're only, this is a way of escaping. This is a way of avoiding. Okay, it's avoiding. It's not meeting reality. So to acknowledge that it exists, know that it exists. Meaning it must be dealt with. You can't just push it aside. If it exists, you must interact with it. It is interacting with you. You must relate with it. Okay. So that's giving it its acknowledging that it shares in that if existence is a sacred thing, it because it exists, it shares in that sacredness. Okay, acknowledge that part of it. Okay, so once you acknowledge it as being as real as anything that is real, that is as all your experiences as being real, then you can relate with it. You can relate with it. You can understand, try for example, the fear, right? All these things that you're experiencing, they are things that you're experiencing. The the inability to move, that's power. I can't move, or I'm moving and I don't want to move. That's power. That's something controlling me. That's real. Okay. And what is it that it's trying to do? What is it? What is the aim of it? What is the real aim of it? What is it that it's really trying to do? That's what we need to make a connection with. That's what we need to find out by just being with it, by observing it without judgment, by making space for it. And if there's a part of us that we feel, especially when we identify with those parts, like the parts that feel shame, the part that feels the self-critic, uh, try to embrace it with compassion. Deliberately try to feel compassion for it, and in whatever ways you can make yourself have compassion for it. Okay, think of it as the same way that you would think of someone who is rejected or is discarded. So that's a part of you that you yourself has rejected and discarded. How would you feel towards someone who is rejected and discarded? So feel that way for that part of you. It's part of you, and it's rejected and it's discarded because it's not understood. Um, I thought I was going to be doing a lot of asking questions, but I went on rambling as usual. Uh, so the integration part is acknowledging that aspects of you or power within you is in that aspect. And we have to sort of bring it back to that source, bring it back to that, bring it back to that reservoir, so that when we need it, when we consciously want to access it, it will not be missing. You know what I mean by missing. When you want to do something, you desperately want to do something, it seems like all the parts of you are very enthusiastic about doing this, and yet you find no energy in yourself to be able to do it. So that is your own power not available to you when you need it. So when we integrate those parts of us, knowing that, acknowledge that we have those parts, we are not perfect, and there's nothing wrong with being not perfect. As a matter of fact, don't misunderstand this. Our imperfection is our perfection. Being imperfect is perfectly the way it's supposed to be. Okay? I don't know if that makes sense. Our state, our human condition where we have imperfections, that is the perfect human state. Okay? Let's not wish to be something that we are not. And I mean that wishing that somehow we were some sort of kind of being that doesn't have these kinds of human experiences. You can wish it for as long as you want, but that's not what you are. What you are right now is what you have to deal with. And if indeed there's a way for you to be beyond human, the way to get to that is to be as human as possible. Embrace all those aspects. Oh, look at that. There's this aspect. Oh, yeah, there's fear. Look at that. Look at fear. Oh, look at you. Come here, fear. Look at you. You're so cute. What are you afraid of? Oh, look at that. Okay. The I would suggest that we look at the Jungian shadow archetypes. These are the ones that are really need to understand, to integrate and stuff like that, like the saboteur, what else in there, the child, the one who's like doesn't want to take the part of us that doesn't want to take responsibility for things, the part of us that feel that I have to control things or things will not go correct. Well, I'm not Jungian psychologist, so I don't. I'm not gonna have the whole list, but those are the parts of us that we have to sit with, have dialogue with, understand that they are part of us, and try to avoid passing judgment on them, and understand that each one of those has a gift for us. And the way we are able to get that gift is to have to be in relationship with them, to relate with them. Okay. All right. So ask your questions, make your comments.
So if nobody has one, I'll start it off. Okay. It's fantastic, as always, to see you. Some great wisdom. So, two things. My question has two parts. Maybe they're related, maybe they are not. I'm in the dark, I don't know. So, so the first part is delusion. Is that I think what I'm noticing is it's the lack of clarity between what is real and what is not real, or like sort of imaginary, like not it's not as simple as a dream or not. So there is that, usually that causes significant confusion and conflict. And then the other part is, let's say you find something that is real, say fear or addiction or shame, or, what else can I say? Something like that, right? Staying with it requires energy.
Oh, yeah.
Where first question, or one of the two, you can pick whichever one you want to answer. How do you address these two things, right? Like one of these, if you can, that would be amazing.
Okay. I'll start with the delusion in the order that you give it. Okay. So that when there is an acknowledgement that I am deluded, that comes from a sincere wish to know what is real. And right now I'm in the place where I don't really know yet. So that place where I don't know yet is part of the delusion. But also acknowledging that there's active delusion, where we are taking something that is not real and we are making it real. Well, that's the real delusion, right? So there is a tendency within us to want to make things real, or there's a tendency within us to want to make certain things real, and that may have different motives. It could be I aspire to this thing, and I'm making it real, and I would like to make it real, or rather, I'm convinced I don't deserve this, so I'm gonna make something. I'm gonna make the fact that I don't deserve it a reality for me to react towards, right? So different motivations. So it is mainly it begins with a lack of mindfulness of what is actually taking place. It has nothing, it doesn't begin, it doesn't necessarily have to have some sort of, some sort of highly sophisticated thing that it is aware of, therefore it is no longer delusion, right? So someone can be someone who can write a masterful thesis on very profound things. But as far as, are they angry? They probably don't even know when they're angry. Are they sad? They probably don't know when they're sad. The things which are their own experiences, their actual experiences, they have no knowledge of. They have no witness. So that person is deluded, is deluded also. So it's not simply, I am deluded because I don't know some very profound thing, therefore I am deluded. But it's rather, there are these things that are actually happening and I'm not aware of them. That's delusion. Okay? And the part about the energy that is required to hold onto these things, yeah, that is quite right. It takes energy to just sit with these kinds of these dark aspects. And what you need to do is to know your capacity. Perhaps you can only do 1 minute, and you do just 1 minute, and basically meaning before it overwhelms you, right? And what's happening there is, it's like you are going against a current. And what the energy that you feel that you're requiring is that, because it's not so much that all of a sudden this thing is heavy that you're dealing with. It's not so much that the shame or the fear is suddenly very heavy, and then you can't lift it, and you need more energy to lift it. But rather, the very fact of facing it is not something that you're used to. You're more used to going in one direction. Now you're going in the opposite direction. And because of going against your own habit, it feels like you're you need more energy. And you may, after doing a session of doing something like that, you will become completely exhausted. And you should rest. Rest doesn't necessarily mean sleep. Sometimes rest means do something silly. That's also kind of rest. Okay. Sometimes if you go to sleep, you might even make it worse. You may not be experience rest, but sometimes you just need to completely put your mind in a different place by being silly or doing something that would take your attention away from that. That's a kind of rest also. Okay. All right.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Yes, Dazam.
Yeah. Thank you, Phuntsok. Well, I think so. I heard you say that everything has a spark of the divine or comes from a compassionate, loving place fundamentally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a Buddhist perspective that I've heard and also very much agreed with. Recently, I was reading a Jungian, because you brought in Carl Jung perspective, that there are some things that that some mythology believes is unintegratable,
Mm-hmm.
like an evil or the devil or kind of forces that the only thing we can do is try to extinguish them or kill them or whatever word we want to use to get rid of them rather than find the root of love and integrate them. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, yeah, how you feel about that. And I guess it shows up in many different cultures, that this idea that there's some things that it's just there's a fundamental evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to say, I was thinking about evil and darkness. Are they one and the same? And when you think of evil, there is intention in it. Darkness by itself doesn't necessarily have any intention, but evil, there's always intention. Uh, uh, you could say evil is a kind of darkness, but not all darkness is evil, but evil is definitely a kind of darkness. Evil is intentionally harming. That's what we would call evil, intentionally harming. And definitely, we don't want any of that. But for a mind to give rise to that, intentionally wanting to harm, you can ask where did that came from? Where did that intention to harm come from? And then you will find that the intention to harm itself is evil, must be getting rid of. But if you go at the root of it, where it came from, why this came up, then you will find that it is connected to some sort of compassion, some sort of wish to preserve a self, to protect a self. And there are battles like something similar to something very similar to this kind of what you might call an evil, where our job is to confront it. Our job is to fight it. And by fighting it, we transform it. By fighting it, we end up reclaiming our own power. Okay. And I don't even though I speak a lot in metaphors, believe me, I don't like metaphors. But it seems like it's the only way sometimes to communicate something. And it sounds metaphorical, right? But it is when, let me put it this way, when we encounter a very difficult challenge, by meeting the challenge, the very meeting of the challenge, we end up getting a gift from that exchange. And by overcoming the challenge, that's the destroying the evil, right? By overcoming the challenge, making it's no longer a challenge, it was transformed. Now we come out of that battle stronger, clearer, and a bit wiser. So that's the gift. But if we do not engage it and leave it alone, let it continue its rampage, we will not be stronger. We will not be wiser. Okay.
So does that mean that you consciously, when, let's say, the shadow comes and you don't want to embrace it, and you just acknowledge it and basically say, I'm not embracing it, and then move on?
You mean if it's a, give me an example of that shadow?
Like fear,
Because,
for example, if you're fearful about something,
mm-hmm.
um, and instead of embracing the fear, just say, I'm not going to be fearful, and then just walk away from it, that feeling or that thought.
No, that's what we don't want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we want to embrace the fear.
Embrace the fear. Embrace the fear means look at what is the fear afraid of? What is the fear? Look at all the different aspects of that fear. What clothes is it wearing? Is it wearing? Is it wearing a hat? Does it have winter clothes on? You know, look at all the aspects of the fear that are present. Really, really come to know it, and where you come to know, oh, the fear is here for this purpose. And perhaps it could be like, I mean, most of our fears are really attachment to things that happened in the past, right? And we are convinced those same events are now present, are now here now. And in the past, we didn't have the ability to deal with it. We had to run away. We had to protect ourselves. So the fear is telling us, the same thing is here again, and you didn't have any, you're not anywhere different than back then, so get away from here. So sometimes the things that we were afraid of in the past, we're no longer afraid of them, but we don't know. There was a time I was not afraid of the dark. When I was very young, the dark was so beautiful. Oh my goodness, I can't see anything. How wonderful. And then hearing, unfortunately, I grew up in a place where every night adults gather with the kids, you know, from the neighborhood. Some adult was telling some kind of scary story. Of course, scary story happened at night. And I'm like, whoa, what's in the dark? What's in the dark? And I became afraid of the dark. And I became afraid of the dark as a child, where I would rather wet my bed rather than go to the bathroom. Okay, that's how afraid I was of the dark. Or then night light saved my life. But this fear of darkness, even though it was something I picked up as a child about some boogeyman lurking in the dark, stayed with me as an adult, even though as an adult, I said, come on, there are no boogeymen in the darkness. So it took me a while for me to be able to just be in darkness as an adult. So I had to not just tell myself I'm not going to be afraid, but rather I have to sincerely ask, what is it that I'm afraid of? What is it? And then find out. And say, wait a minute, what am I afraid of that? I'm afraid of socks. I wear them all the time. I step on them all the time. Why should I be afraid of socks? Okay. So it's the thing about it exists, respect it. It exists. Treat it like anything that exists. Don't say, I'm not afraid anymore when you're really afraid. Don't tell fear, hey, get out of here. When it's here to actually, it came from a compassionate invocation.
Phuntsok,
Yes.
can you talk a little bit towards the quality of integrating in a kind of non-Pollyanna, non-delusion way,
Mm-hmm.
things, sense of humor and joy and sense of celebration into these practices? I understand the kind of onus of it and the importance, and and that the embrace of it brings clear sight, and that the compassion then brings a sense of choice. But sometimes the process for me gets so heavy, it's so that it's almost that the seriousness is another quality that is a darkness that kind of overtakes all of it. So if you can speak to that.
Yeah. The integration of it, it's a process. It's a process that we have to go through. It's not going to happen all at once. The acknowledgement part happens as soon as you, oh, there it is. It's right there. We don't have to understand it yet, but acknowledgement happens. Now, the integration is really the part of the journey where we no longer respond towards that aspect as something to be something to reject. When we no longer respond to it as a part of us that we wish that wasn't part of us. And when we actually understand its aim, and then we sort of like we take on the aim, but we are directing in a different direction. So that's the integration. The integration is when we take on the aim of it, we take it on, consciously take it on. Right? So no longer is fear going to protect me, but I'm going to do this to protect myself. So that's the integration. Okay. All right. Anybody has any examples of what could be called like a dark side that we would like to deal with? Like shame for me. I have a lot of shame.
Me too.
Yeah.
Mine is fear and guilt.
Fear and guilt. Mm.
I've always had a feeling that I should be better than I really am. That I'm not as good as I should be. And that's been part of me for a long time. And I started realizing that it's very uncompassionate of me to feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm kind of assaulting my real self. When you realize that you're not that bad, you have imperfections, but that's you, and everyone does. That gives you a freedom to say to my husband, yes, I am that way. Yes, you don't like it. Okay. But I am that way. And I'm saying like, wow, I could say this now. And it's that's a freedom. And I think that's what you were talking about, the perfection of your imperfections. If we all do this, we become whole, more whole.
Yeah. Yeah. that's the journey. That's the where we want to get to. We want to get to a sense of wholeness. Because right now we are scattered. We are parts of us are disjointed, disconnected, and that's why we don't feel connection with the world, because we are not connected with ourselves.
Seamus has his hand up.
Oh. Yes, Seamus.
I think isn't it kind of like what Jordan Peterson says, that a dangerous person isn't the one who gets into a fight, but acknowledges what is going on and is capable of it, but doesn't engage. Like, I went to an event, and when it was over and it let out, people were hanging out outside, and a guy that I didn't really know made an incredibly rude comment about my girlfriend that I had brought to the event. And in my head, I'm thinking the only proper response to that comment is a punch in the mouth. There wasn't any other proper response. But I also acknowledge that people would also identify me as a Buddhist, so that would look really bad. So what I did is I just said to him, I said, you do understand you're talking about my girlfriend, right? And he just like sneered at me, and he was trying to provoke me, I guess, for some reason. So I just, it killed me, but I turned around and I walked away. And it still bugs me that I did that, even though it was like over 15 years ago. But I think it was the right thing to do. And it showed that, maybe the weak person is the one who engages his emotions and would have hit the guy, instead of I was able to run through it my head real quickly and make a decision, and make that decision to keep my vows instead of engaging my emotions.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful practice. If you were what's his name? I forgot his name. There was this
that guy. Yeah.
This Tibetan yogi. He was a householder. He wasn't a monk. He was known to be somebody to get into fights.
Okay.
And he was not before he was a yogi, while he was already a realized being. He would get into fights. And guess where he would get into fights? In bars.
My God.
And the reason I'm saying that is
I need to read his autobiography.
Yeah. The proper response that you did was proper, because that was your development. You weren't sure. You didn't have the clarity of knowing, if I punch this guy, that will help him.
Yeah.
Okay. So that yogi, those people that he were very lucky that he punched them.
Right.
Phuntsok, one more question. Can I?
Yes.
Can I?
Yes.
Just, you mentioned that sometimes, for instance, you feel shame.
Yes.
Can you tell us so what do you do? How do you approach it, and in context of what we're talking about?
Oh yeah. I guess in the context of what we were talking about, one aspect I didn't mention was shadow, in a sense of a part of yourself that you don't really know. And so this is something I've had sort of developed over the years, slowly. And I think it's more with along the line of the way what Cheryl presented, where I had this idea, this is what I can do. And then, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And not doing it is way back there. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And then with me in that relationship with that is that I'm ashamed I didn't do it. I'm ashamed I didn't do it. So it just, and I didn't know that the shame was really there until I looked at my behavior and noticed there are things that I'm doing that I don't want to do, or there are things that I want to do that I'm not doing. So what is it that's holding me? And I realized that, oh, it's that shame. I have shame. That's the reason I don't do this. That's the reason I don't do that. I have shame. And it's the same thing that I did with, I had a frank conversation with my shame. I had a frank conversation with it. In the same way I had a frank conversation a very long time ago. That's how I was able to be a monk. I had a frank conversation with my desires, where I didn't begin with, okay, desire is bad, let's find out why it's bad. I began with, okay, what is that? Is it good? Is it bad? And if it's good, I'm not gonna pretend that it is bad just because I'm told it's supposed to be bad. So the same thing with shame. So is this good for me? It's not good for me. Why is it with me? What is it trying to do for me? Yeah. Since was the shadow in the sense of I didn't really know it was there, but I didn't know about it. So I'm working on it now. It's not something that I've said, oh, I've conquered it. Okay, check. I'm still working on that. Yeah.
I don't want to take too much time, but regarding shame, I had a recent, some time ago, an experience where I was reeling in pain with shame, but at that point, I don't know from where, this was before I met you, Phuntsok, it was, at some point, I just showed myself so much compassion. I was like, it's okay. It's fine. You're okay. It was unbelievable. And I still think about that moment, and I don't know from where I got that clarity, but it was so much pain. It was just a lot of things at the same time, and shame was just the most amazing thing that was just on my face. And I couldn't do anything. And then I had nowhere to go. It was so shameful. I didn't want to talk about it with anybody. The only person that could help me was myself. And
yeah.
so I don't know whether that helps, anybody, but like that's one experience that I still go back to, and I don't understand how it happened, both the shame as well as the compassion towards it. So
yeah, very good. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for that, for sharing that. Compassion. Hold yourself. Hold myself. It was difficult actually to hold myself in compassion, because the shame was saying, I'm supposed to be here. And you're supposed to feel this horrible feeling. You're supposed to. So trying to have compassion for myself was like almost as if I felt that was the wrong thing in the beginning. Yeah.
I think that shame makes you feel unworthy of compassion. Anyone's compassion.
Exactly.
Especially your own.
Yeah.
Phuntsok, I just want to ask you one thing. Can I ask you a question either after this class or write it to you, like email it to you?
Or you can email it to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I prefer that also.
Okay. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think it's time for us to put an end to this night. Thank you very much for coming. something is I'm supposed to say something for people who are seeing this on YouTube. Well, thank you for watching this. I wish I could say something much better. But all right, so let's do a slight, very short meditation. While you are settling into your posture, have a vivid recollection of how it felt, the meditation that you, and as you are recalling how it felt in the body, how it felt in the breath, the mind, you begin to have a taste of that experience. As soon as you have that taste, wherever it is in the body, the breath, or the mind, just rest there. And take a nice deep breath to stabilize. And let yourself go deeper into that experience. Stay in the depth of that experience as you allow the breath to return to its own rhythm. And try to remember what gifts you may have received from this talk tonight. And express gratitude to that part of you that made this gift possible. And holding that attitude of gratitude, again, see us in a circle, our sense of readiness to be at service of one another as though we are helping our own self. That sense manifests in the center of our circle as a bright light, a bright presence that expands as that sense of self expands, that tendency, that care for one another, as though we are caring for just ourselves. As it grows, that bright presence expands, becomes brighter, absorbing everything within itself, absorbing us, absorbing the neighborhood, absorbing all the way to the planet. And have a sense that all are absorbed in that sense. Our concern for one another, for the rivers, for the ocean, for the mountains, for the birds, for the grass, is equal to the way our left hand is concerned about our right hand. And come back again, seeing that big globe of light shrinking in size and returning everything back and with a glow until it comes back to the very center of our circle, and it splits into rays of light that goes into each one of our hearts, and it gives us that gift where all the different aspects of ourselves are embraced. And we feel the same concern for our shadows as the right hand feels for the left. Okay, get ready to come out. First, make a dedication. Dedicate the merit energy of tonight's gathering to address whatever concerns you may have. Gyewa di kyo ken sunam yeshe solzo shin sunam yeshe le chungwe damba kunye dobar sho. And get ready to come out. Take a nice deep breath. And as you breathe out, let yourself reconnect with your immediate surroundings, reconnect through your sense of touch, feeling the clothing on you, feeling the temperature around you, wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, hear the different sounds around you, and deliberately notice the colors, the lights, the shapes, shadows. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.